Hello, good morning. Second lesson of this teaching. I hope that we are well with this first lesson. Now the second. Then there is not, I am French, I do what I can in English, you have understood. But I hope that you will take many advantages of this teaching, which is not the mine. It is, you have understood, it is the teaching of the church, of the best, I hope, the best philosopher and theology and theology, in theology. While we begin this second lesson. There is no spiritual training in this course. We will use it entirely to do as an overview of all our teaching of those 3 years for 3 reasons. First, to satisfy the natural desire of our intelligence, which is a desire of synthesis, for coherence, for unity of knowledge, From the moment intelligence is awakened in children, it seeks to know what things are. We know the endless questioning of children. Daddy, what is this? Dad, what is this? Intelligence seeks to know what things are. What this or that thing is, and that is being, because being is what is. Being is the object of the intelligence, just as color is the object of sight. And just as the sight will always want to see, so also intelligence always wants to know being. But being is one. It is a property of being. Being and one are inseparable, convertible. There cannot to be being if there is not unity, and there cannot to be unity if there is no being. Being is one, and one is being. For example, a heap of sand has a certain unit of place of several grains of sand, and therefore a heap of sand is a being. And conversely, the unity of several grains of sand is in the same place constitutes a being which is called a heap of sand. All being is one, and all unity is being. The object of intelligence, therefore, is being, and therefore intelligence seeks at the same time its unity. In seeking being, man knows many particular, scattered beings, but he always seeks to make them united. And it is a great misfortune of our time, among young people in particular. It is that they know a host of things, but are unable to make unity, coherence in them, hence an inconsistent life. It's not the only problem. Intelligence has a desire to synthesize what it knows. It knows many beings, but it seeks to make it one being in its knowledge, because it seeks the unity of being at the same time. as it seeks the being. Being, in fact, is all that exists or can exist. Everything that can exist has a certain being because of this possibility. A possibility is a certain being, and so being has an infinite dimension in that it represents everything that is or can be. But the infinite being is God. From this is that philosophers have discovered for a long time that human intelligence is made for God. In seeking being, in fact, man seeks God. He finds being in parts. He seeks to make the unity of what he finds. And as long as he does not have all the being, he still seeks because it objects his being, and that being has an infinite dimension. And that's why sometimes we want to know everything at once. We get impatient. It is to respond in part to this impatience that we are going to give now in this course an overview of all the great questions that man is asking about his life, his origin, and his destiny, about God, to which no other teaching can respond, as well as Catholic teaching, because it comes from the revelation of God, as we have seen, supported by a philosophy certified to be conform to this revelation, as we have also seen. We see now the set of the questions. We will take 3 years to answer to them. So here we will not take the time to demonstrate them, because that will be done in detail in the courses that follow during these 3 years. It is strongly recommended as exercises to summarize each course, then at the end of each year to do the same thing, and at the end of all teaching. Why? You understand, because this teaching was not only done to know something else, but to acquire certainties, to persuade yourself, then to know how to persuade others. It is not a question of knowing anything without knowing whether it is really the truth or not, but of having certainties. This course's teaching is done for that. Everyone does as they want, but these courses are made for that. Like I said, and like everything you don't use properly, you could be wasting your time and doing worse than better. Let's go on. Second, this panorama will also allow us to see a little better the articulation between theology and philosophy, and the need to assure us of the fundamental notion of all knowledge. Often today we take teaching along the way, assuming known quantities of basic notions such as those of truth, love, freedom, when they have been challenged by all kinds of falsehoods, philosophies, so that they no longer have any consistency, and leave the door wide open to all ambiguities. The police could not have said it better. To speak, one must know what one is talking about. Yet many people today, even very educated, do not know what they are talking about when the words they use are questionable. From there, how can we be surprised that we are not longer assured of anything? Today, when the foundation crumbled at the slightest request. How, for example, to speak of truth when agnosticism tells you that we cannot know anything certain, idealism that we can know nothing about reality, nominalism that words are not more than words, nothing more. Phenomenology, that reality is only the consciousness that we have of it. How can we speak of the man created in the image of God when evolution tells you that he is a result of chance, of the fortuitous arrangement of matter? How to speak of the soul when materialism tells you that there is only matter? How to speak of God when atheism tells you that it cannot exist? How can we even speak of the simplest, most obvious and most fundamental notion, being, when one tells you that we can know nothing about external reality, or even that it does not exist? How to talk about existence when you are taught that there is only essence, as the essentialists say? Or how to talk about essence when you are taught that there is only existence, as the existentialists say? How to speak of truth when everyone smiles at his only evocation? So much has his notion been abused. When we assure you that we cannot know it, that nobody has it in possession, that everyone has his own. How to build a society, how even to build yourself. If there is no more truth, if you cannot know anything certain, when everything depends on thought, as we have seen, that all social relations begin with communication, and that without truth there can be no possible communication. How to live a human life when you no longer know what marriage, family, authority, education, school, love, freedom is? How to live together in society when you no longer know what politics is, the common good, when you do not know the dangers of individualism, socialism, liberalism, Marxism, etc. How to think about life when you no longer know what man is looking for, happiness? How to speak of happiness when people no longer even believe in it? How to speak of conscience when you when you no longer know what it is. How to speak of morality when the alone evocation of the word gives nausea to those who hear it, when it is quite simply the manual of man to achieve his greatest happiness. We will see all that. How to speak of love, even love of God, when love is always translated into sexual relations, and not necessarily of opposite sexes. How to speak of love when one does not know what freedom is, without which there can be no true love, since love excludes all constraint. How can we speak of the mystery of the Holy Trinity, mystery of a single God in three persons, when we no longer know what a person or a nature is? How can we speak of the Incarnation when we do not know what man is or what God is? To understand that the Incarnation is God made man. How can speak of redemption when we no longer know what sin is or freedom, the sole cause of sin, of unhappiness, suffering and death? Is it any wonder that we speak of original sin as a fable? How to speak of religion when we say that they are all equal, when we confuse natural religion from the domain of philosophy and supernatural religions, the real one, from the domain of theology? How do you know that man has an eternal destiny when you cannot demonstrate that the soul is immortal, and so many other things that we will take the time to redefine, to demonstrate in these courses? Without a healthy philosophy, not only one cannot make a correct theology, but one cannot even have a correct natural life. When one does not even know, for example, what is the truth, which is the basics of everything in human life. And it is all the more urgent to find the truth of these notions that we are in a world where everything has been turned upside down. If there had not been these false philosophies, which challenged, questioned all these notions, there would be much less difficulty, dangers, to reach our goal. But given the damage, it is of the utmost urgency to restore the truth in all these areas. To take a fairly harsh but real picture, when a person has swallowed poison, the first thing to do, as we know, it is to remove the harmful agent. Finally, three. This little panorama, as we have these first 2 years, about an hour of spiritual formation, this little panorama will serve us as a reminder of our main Catholic truth, a sort of TGV catechism. Now the course, the panorama, the overview. Everything is upset, both in philosophy and in theology. There is no more benchmark. Why? Why has research not always been truthful? Why the error is there, especially since we are made to love the truth above all else? We suspect that this problem joins the problem of evil in the world, and to understand it, we must go back to creation. But as we are no longer sure of anything, we cannot start from creation as such, which is something distant and mysterious, both in philosophy and in theology. And that is why we must start from the point where we are, and from there to take the route step by step. Like a mountaineer who does not throw a foot forward without having carefully adjusted the previous one. But we will not do it here in detail, since it is an overview, and that is why many questions will arise and remain pending. You will not worry, knowing that we will take 3 years to answer them in detail. At the same time, it will give us, we hope, a good appetite for the truth. Where does it all start for a man? It all starts at birth. From there, the child begins to explore the world with his senses. His intelligence will only start to work at the age of reason around 7. From the awakening of intelligence will come the questions. Study, what is it? How it works? Why is it like this? It's intelligence that seeks the being, what things are, as we saw earlier. Why these tendencies to knowledge, to life, to its conservation and its extension. There is in all beings in this world something completed and something unfinished, and that which is unfinished tends towards its completion. For example, we are born with a body and a spirit, but without knowledge. We will have to acquire it throughout our life. We will also need to reach our human size. Likewise, every animal is born with a certain size and must reach a certain maturity. He must also acquire knowledge of his environment. Every being in the world tends towards the conservation of what he has or towards the acquisition of what he lacks in order to reach his perfection. And this in the degree of being which is his. In parentheses, we will see that the theory of evolution, like it is presented today, is false. We will explain that. The plant tends to remain plant and to acquire its full maturity. The animal tends to remain what it is and defends itself with all its might for this against the aggressors. Any animal, if its being is threatened, seeks to defend itself, or flee with all its vigor. And it seeks to remain what it is by feeding, drinking, and conserving its species by reproducing. Likewise, man, for all his animal side, seeks to defend himself if his being is threatened either outside, physically, or inside, physiologically, by its immune system. He seeks to preserve his being and also to perfect himself. First, acquiring knowledge, as we said, then the skill and practical intelligence to acquire his subsistence, to carry out his activities in the world. This is also why he is looking for a good situation. This tendency of each being to keep what he has or to acquire what he lacks, we call it by the general name of love. It is a universal tendency of being to be what it is, either what it is effectively, or what it is only in power, that is to say, what it is destined to become and is not yet. And this universal tendency of being to be what it is realized in every particular being by several particular tendencies. These are in each being powers to be or to do something. Each being has these powers, and it has all the more that it is of a higher degree of being, of perfection. We classify in philosophical cosmology body beings into 4 large groups according to their increasing degree of being. First, innate being, that is to say, those who have no life, like rocks, minerals, chemical elements. Second, the living beings, that is to say, that simply have life, nothing more. These are plants. Third, living and knowing beings, which have, in addition to life, sensitive knowledge. These are animals. And 4, higher knowing beings who have, in addition to sensitive knowledge, like animals, intellectual knowledge, reason, which allows them to know the being. What are things? It is man. The tendency of being inert is to keep its being, like the rock which resists with all its currents against bursting, or to turn towards a new being in union with another by a chemical transformation. The tendency of the living being as such is life, that is to say, to keep this life in it, to defend and promote it according to its degree of being. We note that each being of higher degree has a degree which characterizes it more. The lower degree or degrees, like the living being, the plant, has life, but also the characteristic of the inert being, like being bodily, to have a certain weight, a certain greatness, to be subject to earthly attraction. The animal's tendencies, in addition to the perfections of the inert being and the living being, to know with the senses. All animals have at least a sense of touch, like an oyster, and higher animals have 5 senses, including sight, the most sophisticated. The tendency of man is to know with his intelligence. We will see that. There is an abyss between this knowledge of man with his intelligence and knowledge of the animal. We sometimes attribute intelligence to the animal because we see a certain reflection of it, but it is not an intelligence which he would fully use. The animal only has its instinct, which not allow him to do more than what is set determined by this instinct according to his own nature. Man has true intelligence of his own, which makes him a being superior to the animal, intelligence that allows him to see the being as such, that is to say, everything that exists, to understand what things are. You understand their value, understand their reason. Man, by his intelligence, knows what things are. He is able to ask questions, to ask himself about everything. What is it? And to respond to it by this faculty. That is to say, this is it. And man grabs his object, the answer to what it is, which is called the nature of things in this sensitive bodily world. It is in the things he has in his experience that man grasps their nature. Man apprehends in things their nature, which makes them what they are, and which tells us what they are. The very first tendency which manifests itself in man is that of knowledge, because without knowledge, a knowing being can do nothing. It is made to function thus, with its knowledge. And we have seen that knowledge is above all a life in him, and therefore this tendency is at the same time a tendency toward life. At this level, this is a tendency to be what it is, that is to say, living and knowing. And that's why the little child tries to touch everything, see everything, taste everything, smell everything, hear everything. And then he tries to understand everything with his endless questions. it's the train of knowledge. Then the knowing being, once its knowledge acquired, will be able to live better and guide himself thanks to this knowledge. And this all the better as it will maintain it and make it grow. He will be able to live from it. In his contemplation of the truth, he will be able to be guided by the light which knowledge will have provided him. And all this for its completion, which is called its perfection. Man thus has all the degrees of being of the bodily universe, that of the inert being as having a body and its properties, those of the living being insofar as he has life, that of animals as having sensitive knowledge, and his own insofar as he has intelligence, reason, which allows him to see for himself what things are, that is to say, to grasp the being as such, the nature of things we have said. He has all the tendencies of these degrees of being, but there is one which dominates all the others, the divine. It is that which corresponds to intelligence, which is logical, since intelligence is its highest faculty. Man has a tendency to knowledge, to the knowledge of being with his intelligence, and at this level, man has a tendency towards the being, and the being in the aspect of tendency is called the good, the well, le bien in French. Being is being for knowledge, and good for the trend. This tendency is what is called willingness, willpower, la volonté in French. And this being is of itself infinite, as representing everything that exists or can exist. Good, which is the same thing as the object of will, is therefore also of itself infinite. And that's why man has in him an unquenchable thirst, an almost infinite desire for good, for the object of this higher tendency, which is the willness. He never gets enough of the goods he finds on earth. He always wants more. He is attracted to the good, that is to say, to everything that can bring him more, such as money, power, human love, pleasure. But nothing satisfies him. He always wants even more. Man is made for infinite good, and that good is God, which means that we are made for God. This is what makes Saint Augustine say, "You made us for you, Lord, and our heart cannot find rest unless it rests in you." Sorry. This higher tendency of man, therefore, draws him towards infinite good, and he drives all his other tendencies in him toward this good. Man seeks this good all his life, often without knowing this. And that is why he is unhappy, because the things he will find it in the goods he meets on earth, like human love in the soul sister, so much desired, and realizes that this good is clearly insufficient to satisfy his desire, this tendency. So he looks for it in other finite goods, like money, power, glory, and he doesn't find it either. And sometimes, unfortunately, at the height of glory and human pleasure, he suppresses himself, desperate to find it ever. Man is made for the infinite good, and as a result, he is not determined by any particular good. No single good can alone capture this tendency. And that is what is called the freedom. Freedom is the fact that man is not necessarily attracted to any particular good, no matter how great, because he is made for infinite good, without limits. Each animal, is determined by its instinct in an oblivious way. The swallow will always make its nest in the same way, and will reproduce with its fellow always in the same way, because it is determined thus in a forced manner by its nature, its instinct. Man is not necessarily determined by anything, which means that he is free in relation to any particular being. Nothing necessarily attracts him. It is only determined by the infinite good, its own object, that he always looks for. And one cannot say that his freedom is restrained on the side of this unfinished good, for which it is determined in an obligatory way, since this good is infinite, that is to say without limit, and therefore it is also not limited on this side in any way. On the contrary, it is the opening towards infinity. Man is absolutely free. He has the power to choose absolutely anything he wants. He has unlimited decision-making power. And that is how he was created in the image of God. That does not mean that he can achieve whatever he wants as God, but inside himself, he has the power to decide whatever he wants. And this power is in close dependence of his intelligence. If man can choose with his will, it is because he can know the different values of things with his intelligence, The young man who wants to marry one of the young girls presented to him will do so by choosing one from among them. And he will choose this one preferably from the others, because he discerns something more in her, which pleases him more, which attracts his preference, which determines his choice. And this is possible for him thanks to his intelligence, which made him discern the different values, the different qualities of these young girls. Intelligence sizes the different values of things, which allows the will, source of freedom, to choose knowingly according to these values. It is a privilege of man over animals. Only man among bodily beings has the intelligence which enables him to judge with a full knowledge of the facts and to choose accordingly. What constitutes freedom? Man can choose whatever he wants because of his two high faculties of intelligence and will. All right, is the end of this first part. Soon to the second part. Thank you.